time to talk a little Timberwolves. And we've got the guy who does it all the time on FanDuel, every game. Kevin Lynch, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
First of all, is this a trend or a mirage what we saw in game one? Because we saw all the odds makers say, 16-0 Lakers. That this isn't a series. All of a sudden, it looks like a series.
Yeah, all the talking heads were kind of guessing that the Lakers had the advantage. I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think the Wolves are going to shoot like this, like making 21 threes like they did the other night. So that's probably a mirage to some degree. But I thought going into this series, the Wolves would have a good chance to win it. And they made it. It wasn't just a win. That was a statement win. And let's see if they can build on it. But guys like Jaden McDaniels, I can't imagine he's going to get 25 the rest of the series. But let's ride it out the first game and take advantage of it.
All right. Before we get too deep into this, the first thing I think we have to address is Anthony Edwards. And this is now his team. He's already taken over last year. We saw it when Karl Anthony Towns was here. Towns is now gone, so there's no doubt he's the guy. Before you answer that, I want you to listen to Naz Reid, what he had to say post-game last night about Ant's leadership skills.
His leadership and how he's been leading as young as he is kind of crazy to me. But yeah, man, I think you'd think he's 30. Like, seriously. But just how vocal he is, he wants to win. You could tell. He's desperate. He wants his teammates to do well as well. So I think him being the leader that he is, it just falls down the line.
All right. So how is he doing this? Because we watch the games, and sometimes he seems like he's out of control, right? He led the NBA this year in technicals with 18. So you'd think that's a guy that maybe a loose cannon, yet all his teammates are respecting what he does on and off the court.
The leadership part, I mean, it always is going to help, Jim, when, your most talented player is committed, to winning. And I think players are always going to follow guys like that, regardless of how old you are. So the fact that he's, got the big personality, that's going to help him as well. And another part to it is he's embracing leadership. And that's important, too. Some guys are great talents and great players, but when it comes down to, trying to lead the charge, they don't really want that responsibility.
Right.
Another thing to think about, too, is he's a two-way player. I think he's the best perimeter defender on this team. A lot of people will say McDaniels is. I think Edwards is. And when you're a two-way talent like that, it's easier to lead as opposed to a guy like Luka Doncic, who's such a good offensive player and scorer, but he's a liability at the other end. It's a little harder to listen to a guy trying to be a leader on the team when he struggles playing a defense. And Edwards can do both, obviously. He's got the offense, and he can play good defense, too. And it's easier to lead when you have talent on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, and last night was a great example of that because he scored just 22 points. I mean, for him, you say just 22.
Right.
Because
Subpar
he's
game,
right,
30,
right. But he still nearly had a triple-double last night.
Yeah.
And still the Wolves needed others to step up. You kind of alluded to it, Jaden McDaniels, that in game one he had a team-high 25 points. Is that sustainable? Or where are the Wolves going to go? What do you see McDaniels' role moving forward, I guess? I mean, we both kind of know the answer that 25 is the upper echelon.
Yeah, I mean, that's his all-time playoff high right there, and he rarely gets into the 20s, even regular season games. What do you expect in the next game? He is such an inconsistent up-and-down scorer. You don't know what you're going to get out of him. Now, with that said, like he started this season really poorly as a scorer. He was not shooting the ball well, struggling, confidence. He's always going to have he's one of those guys that you constantly have to encourage to shoot. Whereas a guy like Edwards, you got to pull him back because otherwise he'll shoot every single time. But McDaniels is wired differently. So you have to constantly kind of encourage him to look for a shot. So that's one thing. But he's going to be up and down regardless. But if he can be a guy that gives you 15 points, between 15 and 20 or 25, the Wolves are going to like their chances.
All right, and then Naz Reid, of course, he became the cult hero for fans last year. People were getting his name tattooed on their body. I'm sure you have a couple of them, right?
Absolutely. Here, let me. Naz Reid, after they handed out those Naz Reid towels last year,
Yes.
literally like a day or two later, one of the fans that was at the game that had the Naz Reid towel flew down to like Brazil, like Rio de Janeiro, and they had the towel up by the Jesus statue.
Yes, I saw
so
that.
cult hero is about right.
Yes. All right. He was the NBA's sixth man of the year a year ago. He was back to his old role last night, coming off the bench, pouring in 23 against the Lakers. Is this a good matchup for him, going against what LA presents defensively?
Listen, obviously Doncic is a really good talent. LeBron James at 40 years old is still really talented as well. Austin Reeves has proven to be a pretty good scorer as well. But this is not a deep Laker team. This is not a uber talented team. In fact, I'll say this, the Dallas team from last year is, I don't know, way more talented, but more talented than this team, and younger too. And their big guys for the Lakers are not they're not like Gafford last year with the Mavericks or Lively Jr., those two guys that seemed like they were getting lob dunks every single game in that series. So Naz Reid, Randall, even Gobert to a degree, I would not be surprised moving forward into this series that they continue to have big games. So the Lakers are not a deep team, and as far on the top end, they have talent. Obviously, Doncic, James, But below that, there's a big step down, and so there's some chances that the Wolves can take advantage of, and we saw that last night.
All right. Now, the first quarter of last night's game seemed like a bad dream for Wolves fans as they flashed back to last year's Western Conference Finals with Luka doing whatever he wanted. He had just 16 in that first quarter. LA led by, I think, 7 at that point, ended up with 37, but he wasn't the factor he was a year ago. Why?
I think the Wolves' defense was good early on. He got 16 points in the first quarter,
Right.
so he got out
So
on
then
a
you
roll.
were thinking like, uh-oh.
Yeah, right. And then the Wolves' defense tightened up. Plus, the Wolves started to play offensively better, and then they got the lead in the second quarter, and then the entire feel of the Laker effort changed to me. I just thought the Wolves started to play better. Their defense, really for the most part, from the second quarter on through the rest of the game was excellent. And then you start to see kind of what happened to Minnesota last year in that Dallas series in those 5 games. The Wolves were just out of sync, and a lot of that was Dallas was offensively just making shots. Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and others.
Right.
And it just seemed like their confidence got rattled. And I think to some degree, I think that's kind of what happened to Doncic. The Wolves started playing better. The Wolves had a bounce in their step. They looked confident, and I think that kind of affected the Laker offense.
Is this team better defensively than last year's team, the way it's constructed now with Towns not there?
That's a good question. They missed Towns to some degree because he gave them more size along defensively, and Towns has never been known as a great defensive player, but he's really improved in some ways as well. But that's a good question. DiVincenzo, they're a deeper team, I think, now when you get the 2 guys on this team as opposed to Towns with 1 guy. DiVincenzo's a hard-working defensive player. Julius Randle is a pretty physical, tough character inside. So I think you probably could argue it's pretty close. The defensive rating for Minnesota last year for almost the entire season, the Wolves were number 1 in defensive rating. This year they were like 6th after the regular season ended, so it's pretty close. So I would say it's close enough.
All right, just straight ahead here, we've got much more with Kevin. If he's kind enough to stay with us through the break, I'll have to negotiate that. LeBron James, he will have a say in how this turns out. And welcome back to Sports Now. Bulls analyst, former Houston Rockets star, Bloomington Jefferson, Golden
I didn't
Gophers.
play for Houston. I was with Charlotte.
I just wanted to throw that.
Look at you messing with it.
I just wanted to throw that out. See if you're paying attention. Usually you just go, yes, praise me more.
Yeah, give me love.
Yeah, exactly. And so, one thing that could swing this series back in the Lakers' favor is LeBron James because of his influence on a game. Not because he has the skill. As you mentioned last night, he's 40 now.
Yeah.
But he has earned the respect. He has bullied the respect. He has figured out ways to take control of games. We saw it in just last night's game. Even though they were losing late, he pleading his call with the officials. What kind of factor can he truly be?
I'm not sure I completely agree with you, Jim. I'm not sure in fact, I kind of heard midway through this season as far as how much he's got left in the tank. Obviously, his numbers are good. He's still a really good player, borderline, still a great player, but he's 40, and I don't know. I think his influence, like you're saying, could really come, and this was my one concern going into the series. High-profile team, smaller market team.
Right.
Wolves still trying to ascend and try to find their place and get to the NBA Finals or the West Finals again against the Showtime Lakers, whatever. It was going to be the referees. If the referees sit and coddle Doncic and LeBron James, that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, if the refs let them play, let the players decide, I think the Wolves will win this series. But if the refs get into LeBron James and give him calls and he complains and then he's a star player for 20 years. Then it could get hairy after that. But I think I was pleased with what I witnessed from the refs last night. I'll just put it that way.
All right. And then there's Chris Finch. It's interesting to watch how he runs the team because for us on the outside, the fans, they don't see a lot of him during the game. He's not crazy on the sideline. He's very low-key.
Yeah.
And he lets the team kind of do the job.
Right.
Do you like the way that he has handled these different teams and egos that he's had to deal with when Towns was here and Rudy and that back and forth, and now he has Edwards?
Yes. I think Chris Finch has done a terrific job. Because let's face it, when you're a modern-day NBA coach and you got some of these egos and these players are making so much money, it's basically managing egos, right? I mean, it's probably like that in the NFL or Major League Baseball, whatever. You get a lot of that. But the fact that he's a real approachable guy, obviously he's a smart basketball guy, and I think he does a really good job as far as managing his players. Includes, and I've seen him do this at practice, Jim, where he'll grab one of the players and he'll take the player into a little office right outside the courts, and he sits down one-on-one to communicate with whatever player. I mean, I saw him do it with Jordan McLaughlin a couple of years ago when D'Angelo Russell was here, and Russell was struggling at the end of the season, but the Wolves are going to make the playoffs, and you can kind of tell you didn't know what type of guy Russell was going to be in the playoffs. So, I mean, that's just a good example. I saw him do it the other day with Dante DiVincenzo, too. I don't know. To me, keeping the communication with all your players and getting them away from all their buddies and all this stuff and one-on-one, eyeball-to-eyeball communication and talking about their responsibility moving into the next game or the playoff series, whatever, is important. And he's understated. He's not a guy that's theatrical and looking for attention for himself. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Some of these coaches, they want to be the show. Right, and so they're almost acting on the sideline to get more attention. Finch doesn't do that. He just coaches, and it's kind of refreshing, actually, to see him, behave that way, which is kind of his natural personality.
All right. One quick thing before we go. 20 seconds, fast break points. You wanted to mention this, 25-6. Is that going to be a factor from here moving forward?
Watching the Wolves run off Laker turnovers last night was really interesting. I didn't really anticipate that because the Wolves' reputation, their roster, is they're bigger and slower, right?
Yep.
So they're not going to run quite as much. But really, you look at these two rosters, the Wolves can play small, and Lakers didn't turn it over a ton last night. But the Wolves were running off of missed shots or turnovers or whatever, and they really hurt Los Angeles by running on them, and I think it surprised them. It surprised me as I was watching it. So if they can continue to play that way, Minnesota, I think they're going to like the results.
All right, Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you
very much,
Jim.
it.
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Watch him on the broadcast. I do, because that's the way I only learn anything, is by watching him. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, hopefully we'll have you back maybe next week.
Sounds good. Let me know.
After game 4. All right.